Right. Hi gang, how's everybody doing? Hopefully you all had a good week. I am sorry I'm a day late, but we have good reason. We've actually been down to Dorset and we went down to the Isle of Wight. We took Twyla with us. She was really, really good. And one of the reasons she was really good is because we employed management techniques with her. Now, as a puppy, most of you know that she was absolutely crazy. She was absolutely bonkers. A lot of the time we used to avoid doing things with her. We couldn't always do an awful lot because she wasn't always, the easiest dog to handle. But as she's got older, she's learned that while she's wearing a harness and when she's wearing her lead, it means that she has to be calm. It means she has to behave herself. If we take her lead off and we take her harness off, then she's allowed to play with the other dogs. But when she's wearing her equipment, she's not allowed to. And from right back when she was a puppy, we've always had to create an off switch for her because Twyla, she gets herself very, very excited about things and then she cannot calm down. And like a toddler, she gets overexcited, she goes absolutely crazy, and she just winds herself up further and further and further. So we have to create an off switch. So some dogs do this for themselves automatically. They'll take themselves away from situations and they'll calm down, and they don't necessarily need this. But when Twyla was younger, especially when I first met my partner Peter, when I was taking her over to his house, she would go crazy for like 2 hours at a time. So we discovered that if we took her over there, a crate, and we put her in the crate for 5 minutes when we got there, because she was forced, basically, well, not forced, but she didn't have many choices when it came to running around going crazy, she would calm down a lot quicker and then she would stay calm. So we learned very, very quickly early on that calmness for her was something that we had to provide for her, and then she would be okay. So obviously we can't always take the crate absolutely everywhere with us, but we've also learned in time that having the harness on and her lead, so she has to stay close beside us, means that she also calms down. So this works with her in cafes, this works with her in people's houses, this works all over the place. And it's because we've took her out, we've practiced sitting still, letting her watch the world go by, wearing a harness, wearing her lead. So her options are limited for going crazy, and she gets to practice seeing people. We go to cafes and things like that, and she gets to practice seeing people. She gets to practice seeing the other dogs, but what she doesn't get to practice is the going crazy. And what happens is after a little while, she expects to be calm when she has her harness on. She expects to be calm when she has her lead on, because we've practiced doing that, so that when we actually throw her in situations where we want her to be calm, we now have that as an off switch for her. So of course, there's always going to be times when she wants to go and play with the other dogs, and there's always times when she should be allowed to go and play with the other dogs. But sometimes it's just not appropriate. If it's in someone else's house, or if their dog's a little bit nervous, or if there's lots of other things going on and we don't want her tripping over the waitress, or upsetting children in the vicinity, etc., then keeping her on her lead and her harness, it really does help to settle her down. And while she's on the lead and while she's having her harness, she'll be getting fussies and loves, and she'll be getting treats and nice things. So it's not like she's sitting there and it's a punishment. It's quite a nice thing for her just to cuddle up and watch the world go by. So we've been doing quite a lot of that with her, and she has been an absolute angel all week. So I'm really, really proud of her because we've done so much work with her and it's starting to pay off. And it's taken a couple of years actually to get her to a point where she's calm enough that we can trust her to go anywhere. But she has been absolutely a complete little diamond this week. So I'm really, really pleased with her. So I thought I'd share that little tip with you guys. If your dog hasn't got an off switch, you need to create an off switch. So you need to create some sort of management where they can't go crazy, they can't go running around, turn it into a nice thing for them, and then practice it in the face of distractions. Okay, so that's your little tip for this week. The other thing I was going to talk to you guys about is I've just spotted a chat in a Facebook group, and it's really interesting actually, about vegan dog food. Now, as a vegan, I feed my dog raw, okay? And there is a lot of arguments that go on in the world about whether or not animals should be eating raw food, dog food, cat food, whatever they should be eating. And there is a lot of misunderstanding that goes on with dogs and their diet. Now, I feed Twyla raw simply because that's what she likes. That's what's easy for me to find. I'm not a big fan of kibble, although I have nothing against people that do feed their dog kibble, because I know that it's easy and it does present a complete diet. It does give them everything they need to survive. But also with vegan diets, which are coming more and more into the mainstream, you can buy them in basically any pet shop. a lot of people have got something against them. Now, like I say, I feed my dog raw, but I have absolutely nothing against people giving their dogs a vegan diet. And people go, but dogs need meat. They need meat. They must have meat in their diet to be healthy. And that's actually rubbish, right? Dogs are omnivores. So they can process meat, they can process vegetables, they can process grains, they can process all kinds of things. And people talk about dogs having a species appropriate diet. Now, wolves, a species appropriate diet would be raw meat and berries and possibly the odd few leaves and bits of grass and stuff. For our dogs, they evolved following us around in human campments. Okay, they evolved from wolves. They're not wolves. Their bodies have changed. Their bodies actually produce different enzymes to wolves, and they can eat different things. Now, a species appropriate diet for an animal that evolved following humans around, eating human food waste and human waste, is basically rubbish and poo. So if we're going to feed our dogs a species appropriate diet, we would actually be feeding them rubbish and poo. So that's not really ideal. Vegan food and meat, what they need from that is protein. They need calcium, they need potassium, they need phosphorus, they need all those different, amino acids and things as well. And the way to look at the food is if the dog can digest it, then essentially it's just a carrier for nutrients. And it doesn't actually matter whether it comes in the form of meat or whether it comes in the form of vegetable, as long as the dog is getting enough of adequate nutrition from that food. So if somebody wants to feed their dog a vegan diet and it is labeled and tested as a complete diet, which is very important because then your dog must be getting the minimum amount of nutrients they need to live on it, be it meat or vegetable. If it's labeled as a complete diet, then there is absolutely no reason, if your dog enjoys it, that you can't give it to them. It will not make them any better or more ill than a meat diet. In fact, a lot of dogs I know actually do better on a vegan diet because some of them are allergic to things like chicken and beef and so on, because it is so overprocessed and overfed to them that their bodies start to react to it. Okay, so and also with a lot of the meat industry, there is an awful lot of antibiotics that is fed routinely to the animals that go into the kibble, that go into the tins, that go into everything else. And this means our dogs start to become antibiotic resistant. So there are a few reasons, there are a few arguments for a vegan diet for dogs. Now, what I'm not suggesting is anybody goes out and starts feeding their dogs just beans and potatoes and blindly just giving them salads every day and they don't know what they're feeding them, because they do need to have a certain level of nutrition, like protein and stuff, which must be formulated properly for them. And for a vegan diet for a dog, that can be slightly trickier. So unless you actually know how to formulate a proper meal for them, it would be best, if you're going to feed them vegan food, to do it something that's already formulated for now, just until we understand better what goes into those foods, or until we understand, as people that do not manufacture those foods, what we're actually feeding our dogs, because then we can try and emulate that. But in the meantime, if it says complete on the packet, then it's okay for them to eat. All right. Do never feed them onions, grapes, anything, tree nuts. We don't feed them peaches, believe it or not, have stones, things like that. Don't give them things like that. But yeah, just if you think about it in terms of what their natural diet actually is, and that they've evolved to eat the same things that we do because they used to follow us around eating the same things that we do, then it makes sense that they can be fed a diet that we would eat, whether that be meat-based, whether that be plant-based, whether it be a mix of the two. So yeah, from somebody with certificates and qualifications in nutrition's point of view, yes, you can feed your dog a vegan food. Yes, you can give them raw food. Yes, you can give them anything in between. All right, but just make sure that they're getting adequate nutrition, because that's the important thing. It's not how they get the nutrition, it's the nutrition itself. Anyway, I am going to go because I've got a load of unpacking to do. If you guys have got any questions for me, then I will be here next week. Peter is actually moving in on the Tuesday, but I shall be here on the Wednesday. There may be a bit of kerfuffle going on in the background. I don't know yet, but I will see you soon. All right, bye-bye.